Hi, it's Chase from Furball Fables, and I'm back with a fourth update of the Cole and Marmalade legal battle that's going on. There's been a lot going on, and I think there'll be more things happening pretty quickly, so we'll go ahead and do this update. If you haven't seen the other 3 videos that we have done, I'll put a card up here in the video, as well as we'll put a link to a playlist in the description and at the end of this video. In the beginning of May, there was an amended emergency motion for the entry to show cause. I'm not going to read this whole title. I'll show it up here on the screen. It's directed at Stephen Watters and Ed Holden, the 2 partners from Digital Pet Media, and they were to appear in court. They had to basically say why they shouldn't be held in contempt for failure to obey the court-ordered injunction. That was from January, because they refused to pay Chris his distribution payment for March and April, and also they paid themselves an extra distribution beyond what that was in the injunction. What that means is that both Steve and Ed got their $5,000, plus they got an additional amount. Ed got $13,200 and Steve got $12,800, and Chris got $0. They refused to pay Chris. They sent a letter to his lawyer saying that there was not enough money to pay him because of future bills that could come. Yet they paid themselves under the guise of an independent contractor. They cited that the reason they did not pay Chris is because Chris had violated the injunction by posting the GoFundMe account, and therefore the revenue had dwindled down to just $2,000 in April. Chris's lawyer had to ask for the bank statements legally, and we could see that in the bank at the end of March there was over $130,000. They are saying that they were allowed to do that because they were still doing a lot of work for DPM. The other thing that is interesting here is that there's a list here that shows all the services that Holden 2 provides for Digital Pet Media. I particularly found it very interesting and somewhat questionable that they say that they are managing all the social media sites and that they need to create content, that they're monitoring comments and things like that, when actually there has been no new content at all since that fake YouTube video went up in the beginning of March. So they're not taking any responsibility for the downfall of this company and blaming it all on Chris. Also, I wanted to make note that DPM has been able to pay their own lawyers out of the DPM account. There's a clause in the contribution agreement that says that they can do that. The other thing that's really interesting in this emergency motion to show cause is that Chris wanted the injunction that was put in place in January to be dissolved because he felt that the only reason he had agreed to this injunction was to freeze the revenue of Digital Pet Media so that DPM could no longer take these excessive management fees. He also wanted to be able to tell the fans, he asked that he could make a statement telling the fans that he was not getting his distribution payment. Naturally, DPM disagreed with having the injunction dissolved. They cited a number of things, including repeating again that he had gone against the injunction by posting on GoFundMe. They also asked that the court not dissolve it because Chris would then be free to just continue to destroy all of Digital's business. There were a few other things to note in this document that I think I should comment on. Apparently, there is a line in the injunction which I missed. Poole was to operate CatMan Chris and CatMan Chris Poole's online presence consistent with prior practices for which he would have been paid. Now, I never saw anything about him being paid for this, and nor would I imagine it would be well advised to do so, since that is really the heart of this legal battle, is the control and the trademark of CatMan Chris and Jugg and ZigZag. But I have seen that he is posting very similar content on his own personal Facebook page, so perhaps that was what he decided to do in the meantime until this could all be sorted out. We also learned that they were considering going into a sister market, which I find very surprising considering I believe everything was supposed to be frozen. The sister market, which they say Chris had approved, is Coffee for a Cause, and they wanted to be able to put money into that from DPM. I was waiting to find out what happened with this emergency injunction because I knew there would be a court hearing pretty quickly, and there was one scheduled for mid-May. I was waiting, and I found out by accident what had happened. Basically, when they were having the hearing, they were about an hour and a half into the hearing, and Chris's counsel announced that they had decided to remove this case and move it to federal court because of copyright. They felt that it was now a copyright issue. The third amended complaint, which they call the second, but it was really the third, had been approved in May, and I guess Chris's counsel had 30 days in which to make this move once that was approved, and so they went ahead and took this case to federal court. I think the move to remove this case to federal court must have been quite dramatic. Chris's counsel believes that all of the things in this March 27th complaint really fall under the jurisdiction of copyright. I have to tell you it's complicated and I really don't understand it all, but I'll try to explain what I do understand. This last amended complaint is very different from the first two. They no longer call it the Cole and Marmalade Network, but instead now call it the Cole and Marmalade brand. And really now this whole lawsuit is about CatMan Chris and Jugg and ZigZag. Chris's counsel feels that it has become really a copyright case, and so that's why they moved it to federal court. Chris's counsel says that this amended complaint from March 27th from DPM is basically asserting the ownership and control of all of Chris's works, which would include, of course, videos, pictures, articles, and anything else he had created. What's not in dispute is Cole and Marmalade. Digital Pet Media does own Cole and Marmalade, but what is in dispute, of course, is CatMan Chris and Jugg and ZigZag. There are 6 counts in the March 27th complaint. The first one deals with ownership of CatMan Chris. The second one is ownership of Jugg and ZigZag. Count 3 is a breach of contract. Chris breached the contribution agreement. Well, he breached the contribution agreement because he was not creating new content. They've asked for damages caused by his breach of the contribution agreement. Count 4 is a conversion, which basically they ask for damages. Count 5 deals with the property that Chris has. I think that he has not delivered yet. I believe that would be maybe hard drives with footage and pictures and things like that, and also any websites, passwords, etc. 6 is unjust enrichment. So they are requesting a judgment of damages in the amount of the value of Holden 2 services rendered on CatMan Chris and Jugg and ZigZag's online presence and pages. Chris's counsel, they've put out a new document, which is a motion to dismiss all the counts of this second amended complaint. They just dispute every one of these things. Here we have them all summed up. We learned a few interesting things from this motion to dismiss. Throughout the months of November 2019 and December 2019, the 3 members of Digital had disagreements over material issues regarding intellectual property and the management of the company. Mr. Watters and Mr. Holden took a no-compromise stance on legitimate concerns of Poole. Watters threatened that if he didn't get his way, the company would sue Poole and the company would pay for all of Mr. Watters' legal fees. There is nothing more fundamentally protected and preempted by federal law under the United States Constitution than written works of authorship and audiovisual copyrights. That's really at the core of this new case that has been moved to federal court. But because Cole and Marmalade compilation was not enough for Watters and Holden, and because these videos were based on 2 real-life cats, Watters declared cats were like baseball players. They get old. They have to be replaced. Thus, Watters also wanted to obtain all intellectual property over CatMan Chris and Chris's 2 younger cats, Jugg and ZigZag. Watters stated the company's bottom line would be improved with those additional assets, since Cole and Marmalade are not going to last forever. So there you have it, what really this all boils down to. It still doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that they would go to the kind of expenses that they're going through and to go through this lawsuit just to take control of CatMan Chris and Jugg and ZigZag. Chris's counsel is saying that the second amended complaint should be dismissed as it's currently written, and that the requests for counts 4, 5, and 6 should be dismissed without prejudice, but that counts 1, 2, and 3 should be dismissed without prejudice to allow Digital to refile these claims under appropriate theories of law. When we see how much money Digital Pet Media is spending on their lawyers, you can imagine that GoFundMe account is getting pretty low now. Please do continue to contribute to that GoFundMe account. I also don't want to forget to tell you that Chris is still out there rescuing cats. He needs that support as well. So again, support the GoFundMe account, which I'll put a link in the description of this video. It's always fun to see Jessica's Etsy page on Instagram and Facebook, and I really encourage you to support her Etsy page on Accessorati, and I'll put a link for that in the description as well. She's got some really, really beautiful items on there, as well as some really fun cat toys. I hope this is clear. It's very hard for me to have to try to figure a lot of this stuff out, but I did my best. I know there's going to be a lot more information coming up pretty quickly, so expect another video coming up. It could even be within a few days to a week of this one. So subscribe to this channel so you get a notification about upcoming videos. Also, I wanted to especially thank all of the Cole and Marmalade fans for watching some of our videos on Furball Fables. I encourage anybody here to please, go ahead and support this channel as well. And it's been really nice to have many of you commenting and being a part of our channel. We are really thrilled to have you here. So thank you. I really appreciate that.